Hello everyone, I'm Matt Brisboy with the Newport Beach Fire Department, and I'm here with engineer Aaron Brown, and we're out here today to kind of showcase one of the fire department's classes that we have to do annually called RT 130. Engineer Brown here is one of our firefighter experts really, who's been out on a lot of wildland calls, and she's one of our lead instructors. So Aaron, can you explain to the public here really what we're doing and what the purpose of this training is today?
So every year we are required to come out here and accomplish this training. It stands for refresher training or recurring training, and what it is it allows our firefighters to get a little extra practice at the stuff that we don't do very often, and that's the wildland firefighting part of our jobs. We come out here, we have to practice getting in our fire shelters, which is super important, pull wildland hoses, and just stuff that we don't do on a regular basis, because in the summer we do see that a lot, and we are involved in a lot of wildland firefighting.
And Aaron, one of the things I noticed right off the bat when I get here is that all the crews are in completely different uniforms than what the public is kind of accustomed to you seeing when we run in on structure fires. So can you kind of explain to the public why this is a completely different uniform than the one you traditionally wear every day when you're running calls here in Newport?
Sure. So when we're out in the wildland, our structure attire is very heavy, very hot, protects us from the elements of a house fire. But when we're out in the wildland, it's already really hot outside. If we were to wear that gear outside, it would be way too hot. We'd get heat exhaustion and everything. So what we do is we lighten our load a bit, and we wear fire protective clothing still. This is fire resistive, made of Nomex. Basically, just like our structure gear, it will burn if a flame touches it, but it won't sustain a burn if the flame goes away from it. So we have we call it wildland or lightweight turnouts. And they're just lightweights, have some protection, but we're not going to be as close to the fire typically as we would in a house fire. We don't have the smoke that's banking down on us, causing that radiative heat. So out here we just have a lot of heat exhaustion issues in the wildland, so we have to wear lighter clothing. We do also have different boots out here, and these boots help. They're higher ankle boot for ankle protection. They don't have a steel shank like our structure boots do that protect from punctures, because out here we don't have that kind of issue as much, and those steel shanks get really hot and can burn our feet. We do have a couple different pairs. When you see, we'll have some people wearing yellow pants, some people wearing blue pants, and basically the yellow pants that you'll see are a double layer pant. You can't wear those pants single layer because they don't have the fire resistive properties. So we'll wear those when we get an immediate response and we have to run and get in the rig real quick and go. Those will be the ones we'll pull on over our station pants. If we're out there for extended period of time, then we change to our blue pants. It's a single layer pant. It's made for single layering so that it does have the protective qualities that we need, and it's also lighter. So we've just recently gone to this, and everybody seems to love them. So also our helmets are a lot lighter. The structure helmets also have some thermal protection in them, also some fall protection. And so it's basically like a completely different uniform.
Right, and so every day when Newport Fire personnel show up to work, they have both uniforms ready to go because you're ready for a wildland fire or a structure fire every day, 365 days a year. And we really do have a big wildland threat here in Newport that we would be the first responders to get there. And rather than wearing our structure protection gear, we're in our wildland gear. Is that correct?
That's correct. So every firefighter has a wildland bag that they throw on the engine with them every day. It has all of our wildland gear. It has extra socks, extra shirts. Some people have some snacks in there, anything we may need if we get sent out on an immediate response strike team someplace. So we're always prepared for that.
And in Newport, one of the big things we're really worried about is obviously Buck Gully, obviously Newport Coast, the Laguna Wildland interface and things. The 1993 Laguna fire obviously came right over, and we would be the first on scene responding, waiting for the other strike teams to get here to assist us.
That's correct. We do have a lot of, we call it WUI or Wildland Urban Interface in the city where the houses meet right up with the wildland, and so that is a huge concern for us. In a lot of areas, they do have what they call fuel modification, which is high moisture content foliage that slows down a fire, but we do have some areas that are a little older. Buck Gully on one side doesn't have any fuel modification, on the other side they do. So we know based on that fuel modification where we want to put most of our resources and But it is something that is a very real threat to us, especially with Newport Coast Wilderness. This area specifically where we're training today, a lot of little islands in the different neighborhoods like that. So we definitely have the threat of wildland here in the city.
All right. Well, thank you, Engineer Brown, for being here with us today. We're going to check out the drill and watch what some of our crews are doing here. And just to reiterate what Aaron talked about, this is a training that our fire personnel go through annually, as do all fire personnel in the state of California, to really protect for wildland fires. And this year, as many of you know, was a huge wildland threat all up and down the state that Engineer Brown went on several of those calls. And so it's something that we really are concerned about here in Newport Beach. And that's why the Newport Beach Fire Department is constantly training and getting ready for these threats. Aaron, can you explain right now what we're looking at, what we're viewing and things, what they're doing?
Basically, JC is just giving an overview of how the drill is going to go. This is scenario-based drill, so it's sometimes difficult to play make-believe, so we try to explain it as best we can, the situation to the crews. Obviously, the drill takes place in July, so we know that the weather conditions are poor and the humidity is low. So he's explaining that to them, and basically just how the drill is going to go. This is a drill. Newport engine 6.8, Newport engine 6.3, Newport engine 6.2. Respond to a reported vegetation fire at Mesa View and Ford Road. We have multiple callers and a large header of smoke shown.
Battalion 6 and all incoming units, Newport engine 68 is on scene. We do have a confirmed vegetation fire. This fire is in the brush adjacent to the AT&T building right off of Bonita Canyon. Appears to be a wind-driven fire. The fire does appear to be coming into alignment. From what I can see, it appears to be about half acre in size. All units be advised, the fire does appear to be moving quickly, and there is no viable anchor points. We're going to wait until the fire burns to the road, and then we're going to attack it with Division Alpha and Division Zulu progressive hose lines. Break, Metronet, forward command. All units be advised, our primary objective is to keep the fire contained to Mesa View Park, to the east, Ford Road, to the south, Bonita Canyon to the north, and MacArthur to the west.
All right, Engineer Brown, one thing we hear over on the radio a few times and we've heard the crews talking about is LCES. What does that stand for all of you here in the fire service?
So LCES stands for Lookouts, Communications, Escape Routes, and Safety Zones. And basically in the wildland arena, in order for us to engage any fire, we need to have those in place. We need to have a lookout assigned to keep an eye on the fire in case it does something we're not expecting. We need to make sure we're all on the same frequency so we can communicate. We need to have an escape route, which is a route of travel that can get us to what we call a safety zone. And a safety zone is basically a large area where we don't need to deploy our shelters. Sometimes the reason we have our shelters is our escape routes will get cut off and we won't be able to make it to the actual safety zone, in which case we can use what we call TRAs, which are temporary refuge areas. And those are areas we can go for a little bit until the fire blows away or blows past, and then get back to our escape routes and safety zones. So those are things that are a must in every wildland fire operation.
Okay. And I noticed that it looks like Assistant Chief Boyles, is he serving as the lookout today? Is that his position?
He is. He's the lookout and the safety officer, so which can be one and the same.
All right, I'm here with Assistant Fire Chief Jeff Boyles, and Chief Boyles today is serving as a lookout as well as a safety officer. And Chief Boyles, I know you've been on a lot of wildland fires in your career and you still go out as a strike team leader. Can you explain some of the positions? Because I've noticed there's tons of positions out here and different roles that all the firemen are kind of filling in on.
Sure. Today we're running a drill where we have a lot of different positions that we're filling. Some of the engineers out here on the street are obtaining water supply to get water to the hose lines. We have a crew behind us that are constructing hose lays down into the fire area. We have a captain up here that's overseeing the crew. We have a battalion chief that's overseeing the whole operation. My role today in this one is just to be a lookout and what we call a safety officer. And that's where you try and find a vantage point, some high ground, so that you can look at the topography, look at the weather, look at the fire conditions, and look at where your people are deployed and make sure that they don't get overrun with fire or put themselves in some sort of dangerous predicament. On a large-scale incident, my position would be as a strike team leader, where I would be in charge of 5 fire engines and 20 different personnel, and I would have battalion chiefs and captains working under me. So today we all get to do a little bit of a different role, same but different. We practice our current roles, but we get out of our current roles a little bit too. as our annual refresher training where we get to practice and go through the motions.
So a strike team, Chief Boyles, is 5 engines plus a supervisor, or?
Correct. So when we talk about a strike team, and you may hear that on the news, when we send crews from Orange County, let's say, up to places like Santa Barbara or Northern California or San Diego, we'll send 5 fire engines from this area with a battalion chief from this area. So each fire engine takes 4 personnel on it with a battalion chief who's in charge of all 20 of those personnel that ride in those 5 fire engines.
And that's uniform throughout the state. A strike team is the same in Northern California it is in Southern, and that's the standard terminology that all fire departments use to describe a strike team.
That's correct. From the Mexican border all the way up to the northern border, we're all speaking the same language so that we know what we're getting when we order resources. So for example, when we had our latest fires here, the Canyon 2 fire and the Canyon 1 fire in Anaheim, or the Santiago fires or the freeway fires you may be familiar with here in Orange County, we call for strike teams. We can get them from San Diego, or we can get them from San Bernardino or Northern California for that matter. But they're coming in as like resources, and we all speak the same language and have the same types of tactics and strategies, and we know how to communicate well with each other.
Because a strike team, for instance, from Orange County could be from 3 or 4 different departments with one battalion chief leading those 3 or 4, those 5 engines. They're not all necessarily from the same exact city or from the same exact department.
Correct. That's a good question. Here in Orange County, what we typically do is we'll send one strike team of 5 engines from the OCFA. They'll work together. They come out of the Orange County Fire Authority. And then we'll send one strike team from what we call the metro cities. So you'll get a mixed bag, if you will, of fire engines from Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley, Fullerton, Orange, the smaller independent cities.
And this has been obviously a really busy wildland fire season that we've seen all over the news and things. And a lot of the reason why we in Newport participate is because we expect the same level of service, and when we need those strike teams to come, they'll come and assist us as well. It's a reciprocal back and forth with our mutual aid system.
Absolutely. So we do send units out quite a bit around the state to help out. And one, it gets our people some experience while helping the other communities. But two, perhaps more importantly, when our day comes when we need resources here, the rest of the state and the counties around the state will pour resources towards us.
And everything is by request. We're never sending engines without them being requested, without the personnel being requested. And then ultimately that decision is up to the city to decide who we're sending and what resources we're going to be sending, what we can afford to send out and what we can't.
Again, correct. The incident, if you will, the county or the region that has the fire going on, let's say it's San Bernardino, they will call our region. So the Orange County region will then put out resource request, what they call it, and each individual city gets to determine. I'm the operations chief here in Newport Beach. I get to determine if I can spare an engine or 2 out of Newport Beach to send to San Bernardino. So we pull up our resources pretty quickly. We have conference calls. We have morning daily staffing sheets where we discuss what's available and what isn't available. And if something comes in as an immediate request, our dispatch center out of Anaheim knows exactly what he can draw from.
And so, Chief Boyles, everyone from our fire chief all the way down to our newest probationary firefighter goes through this RT 130 training annually every year as a refresher to make sure that you're up to speed with what to do, how to operate. And the tactics are always changing and the training is always changing based on advances within the fire service.
Absolutely. Our equipment's always changing. We just received a delivery of some new hand tools over the winter time that we're going to be practicing with today. The tactics are always changing, but probably most importantly, the communities and the topography is always changing because these cities are building more and more homes in what we call the wildland urban interface area, the WUI, if you will. And you may hear that term a little bit on the news as well. And that's why I think, for the most part, vegetation in California hasn't changed, but our housing has changed. So the vegetation and the fires getting into the housing is the new complicated issue that we're faced with.
And we really have a fairly substantial wildland interface here in Newport Beach, which is really the primary reason our crews are here training is for the Newport Coast, Bonita Canyon, the Buck Gullies, those areas, because we truly will be the first responders that are into there to respond before these strike teams and others arrive.
Absolutely. So we can never train to that enough. We do it on a day-to-day basis behind the scenes. We do fuel mitigation and hazard reduction for the homes that are in our area. Our life safety services and fire prevention folks are out doing that. But on our operational side, we come out here and practice as well should the event happen.
Okay, so Engineer Brown, right now we're watching Firefighter Cortez and Assistant Chief Boyles come up, and can you explain to the public exactly what are they doing right now?
So basically what this is simulating is that they can no longer escape the fire and they need to run and deploy fire shelters to protect their bodies. In this situation, they try to find a spot that has as little vegetation as possible because anything underneath the fire can ignite. Also, they put their feet to the fire so that their head doesn't get the brunt of the heat. They want to make sure that they talk to each other and make sure that they're both accounted for. And oftentimes we need to stay in these shelters for a while. The fire will take a while to burn over, so they stay there. They say, if in doubt, wait it out. You don't want to get out of your fire shelter too early because the superheated gases can overcome you, and a lot of people have died that way from fire. So basically that's what they did.
It's truly one of the scariest things you could ever encounter, having to deploy your fire shelter. And if I recall, in the Santiago Canyon fire, 8 firefighters did have to deploy their shelter, and they all did survive, but that was something that was really, really frightening when that did happen.
Yes, I did hear that was a pretty frightening event for them. Luckily, it was a little bit of a false alarm. The fire didn't get to them like they were expecting.
Well, that concludes our simulated drill here up in Bonita Canyon. And Chief Boyles and Engineer Brown, can you explain really what they're doing now in terms of this debriefing? And at the end of the drill, or at the end of any wildland exercise or deployment, they're always doing a debrief, and what the significance of the debrief is.
Well, with the fire department, any training operation we do a debrief, and things we think we could have done better. It's oftentimes hard to, when you're on the spot, to always make the perfect decision, and so we request feedback from even the person, like for example, Captain Liberto was first on scene. He did a great job. Maybe afterwards he could think, well, in hindsight, I may have done this differently. And then we request input from everybody else, anything they saw that they could have done differently. And so it's just our way of checking ourselves and making sure we did everything that, or learned from what we did.
Right, always looking for ways to improve in things. And Chief Boyles, when you're as a strike team leader, would you be the one leading these debriefings as well as the incident briefing at the end of the incident?
Typically, yes. What we'll do is we'll take the 5 captains assigned to me, and I'll debrief with them briefly, and then we'll bring in everybody else. So I'll take all 20 from the strike team, and we'll talk about things that we saw, decisions that were made, actions that we took, and things like Aaron was saying that we can improve on or do differently, or maybe even things that we did well.
Well, Aaron, thank you for sharing this training with us and with the public here in Newport Beach. It was a really wonderful training. One of the things we'd like to leave the public with is what they can do, and if a wildland fire were to hit here in Newport Beach, or if they were anywhere else throughout the state, what are some tips you can give them in terms of how they can help you as one of the first responders when you're showing up and responding to these fires? What can the public do to really help out the most to protect themselves?
Well, the best thing they can do is heed evacuation orders, because we do have a lot of resources coming into the area. Unfortunately, sometimes when you stay, it does prevent us from protecting your home appropriately. Another huge thing is clearance. A lot of people have brush and foliage that goes right to their house. It's really hard to prevent a house from catching on fire when you do have that kind of foliage sometimes touching the structure. Boxed eaves, if you have a house with open eaves, then you're higher risk for catching on fire. So knowing that, knowing what your house, the dangers that your house, or the likelihood of your house catching on fire is great, because then you can be proactive in preventing that.
Yeah, we call it here in Newport the Ready, Set, Go program. We need all of our residents to be ready and prepared and ready to go. If you're interested, the Newport Beach Fire Department encourages all residents to be prepared for any type of unexpected disaster. The fire department offers a full 24-hour community emergency response team training program that we offer 2 classes in the fall and 2 in the spring. So if you're interested in joining us, just go to www.nbcert.org, or you can give us a call at 949-644-3112. And we're here to answer all of your disaster preparedness questions, because we need all Newport Beach residents to be prepared for any unexpected disasters. And while the wildland threat here in Newport Beach is real, and it is something we're planning for, and as should you, and all residents should really get prepared and get a disaster preparedness kit and know what your plan is. So thank you all for being here with us today. Thank you, Engineer Brown, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.